Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the 192nd Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Darrin C. Today's topic is selfish, self-centered. That we think is the root of our troubles. And so this was from a list that Darrin produced, and I'd like to welcome you back, Darrin. I love our conversations, and every time we've got one coming up, I'm looking forward to when we meet. So yeah, you want to tell us what this topic means to you and why you put it on the list of potentials there?
Because I'm selfish and self-centered, Milan. As we all are, I think, to some degree. No, it just, I believe it's at the root of the core of our problem. Just not even as people in recovery, just in humanity in general, right? So I just thought this would be a real interesting topic, good conversation, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of it all.
Yeah, I was, I was early in the treatment center that I went to. We were just talking about our treatment centers before we started this. And at the treatment center I went to, I remember the two head counselors, and they were like, you might be a little bit self-centered and self-seeking and selfish in your thoughts. And I was like, you don't know me, and I was offended. I was offended by that statement to begin with, because I thought that I was this generous, giving person, and through the blessing of doing this step work, I really was brought to awareness of the motivations behind a lot of my actions that I saw as generous or service oriented, and so for me, one of the parts of my journey is really seeing how important service is for us to get out of, that kind of mindset. Because when we're just thinking about us, that's a real dangerous hamster wheel for people like us to get on. If I want to be living in my itchy bitchy twitchy or stinking thinking situation, it's when I start to think about what I don't have, what I want, what I deserve, what you're not doing for me. And that's just a really crazy place for me to be. So, I feel that, the freedom is when we're given away from self-centeredness to spiritual centeredness. And that is, first of all, living presently, connecting with our higher power, and being a service. So I think I'll leave that there, because we always have great questions, and I can't wait to get into them. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start? Oh, I think you're muted. I didn't hear. Did you mute?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your call.
Well, you start this time with the questions.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So, question one: what is selfishness to you, and what is self-centeredness to you?
Woo. Well, okay, like selfishness to me is the degree to which I'm being selfish. And by that, I mean, like when I'm thinking only about me and trying to acquire or, get based on fully just my needs and nobody else's. And I think that, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I would think that self-centeredness is kind of when I'm at the center of everything. And when I think, like my sense of importance is blown way out of proportion. And instead of being part of the universe, I think I'm the center of the universe and everything should be servicing, the queen bee Milan in that respect. And that was a real eye opener, going through the journey of the steps and seeing how much I based a lot of happiness upon that. And okay, now you want to answer that one?
Yeah, thank
I
you. It was a
bet
great
you know
answer.
exactly.
Yeah, I think the selfishness, Milan, is when I'm thinking about myself more than others, just as simple
Mhm.
as on that level, right?
Yeah.
I start,
Mhm.
putting, what I want, my life, my needs, worries, whatever, ahead
Mhm.
of thinking about my wife and friends and people in recovery. And so that's what the selfishness means to me. The self-centeredness, it's funny because I remember because when I first got here, I'm like, I'm not self-centered, right? And so I heard a guy in a meeting one time. He said, self-centeredness is not what I think of myself, it's how often. I said, oh crap, I'm self-centered.
Yep.
Because that's all I think about. I got a friend of mine in the program. He says, I get up in the morning thinking about me, I go to lunch thinking about me, and I go to bed thinking about me. Right. So that's the self-centeredness, when everything's focused on me. Right. And the problem with that, Milan, is that we're taught that it's a human tendency, I think, in just everybody to, even in the animal kingdom, to look out for yourself to survive, whatever. So I think it's just a natural,
Mhm.
innate human tendency. But for us as people in recovery, um, it's even worse because we have it at 100-fold, right? But we're taught this as a kid, the American dream. What is the American dream? The American dream is not looking out for my neighbor. How can I help other people? The American dream is, can I get a house? Can I get me,
Mhm.
me, me? And so at an early age, we're taught that, right? And then you hear slogans all growing up. If it's to be, if is up to me, right? I mean, this whole thing, got to look out for number one. All these things that we're like taught growing up to look out for ourselves, and then we take those to 100-fold, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's where it's just innately grained in us to look out for ourselves over others.
Yeah, I have a friend who comes to meetings and he says, I'm not much, but I'm all I think about.
Right.
Similar to your friend there. Yeah, I think it's a big problem with our society, really, that it's, what, first of all, it's consumerism. So it's like, what don't I have? What do I need? Not what does anybody else need, like they throw it around so you spend more money at Christmas for what others need, but it's not really like an act of service they're looking for. It's looking for you to open your wallet wider. And that, quite frankly, is propagates the myth that we're not enough and that we don't have enough, right? Like, and those two things will keep us in that selfish mode. Okay, so I got a question for you. Selfishness blinds us to truth, and humility opens the eyes of the soul. How has humility helped you see the world beyond your own wants and fears?
Great question, Milan. So let's just be clear, right? Humility is not a top trait of mine when I get here, right? And matter of fact,
Yeah.
I know zero about humility. If I have an inkling of humility a day, it's because of the program and the steps and all that stuff.
Mm.
Because it's not part of my character makeup, right? Pride, ego, that's part of
Hmm.
my character makeup when I got
Yeah.
here. Um, and so going back to your question, I think, I mean, to me, I had to define what humility is. And everybody's got all these different definitions of humility. But I like to take the one directly out of the book that says humility is the desire to seek and do God's will, right? And so when I'm trying to do God's will instead of my will, then I feel like I have some degree of humility, right? And so God's will for me is to help others, right? So in the big book that I read, right, it says the greatest commandment is to love God and love people, right? And then I get to this program and it says my main purpose is to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and my fellows. So there's sort of a theme running there that humility is directly proportionate to me thinking about others and trying to help others, right? Instead of my own thinking about me. And so the humility in the program, I mean, no, we're taught that all through this program. Right? My very life as an ex-problem drinker depends on my constant thought of others and how I may help meet their needs, right? If I don't self-sacrifice for others, I can't meet the trials and low spots ahead, and I'm going to drink again. So I love the fact that not only the book teaches me humility, but specifically teaches me humility in being selfless to others. And so hopefully that answered your question.
I think so. So I got, I think I was telling you I got a new sponsor there a little while ago. And one of the things she did was she's like, get the big book dictionary. And so in it, humility says being humble, the absence of self-pride, self-will, or self-assertion. And, so, I mean, the steps I feel are designed to help us gain some humility, right? And I heard this great thing, and I don't know if I said this the last time I saw you, but it's been something that's really stuck with me. If God is love and will is thoughts, then God's will is loving thoughts. So what we're turning ourselves over to is loving thoughts. And I thought, what an easy way for me to understand what God's will is. Like literally, then I'm like, hey, am I living in loving thoughts here? You know, uh, and uh, and loving thoughts aren't selfish. And loving thoughts are humble. And like a big part of the steps has been for me is helping me see myself as part of, not all of. Like that self-centeredness. I mean, it was that like everything had to be part of my day versus me being part of everything's day. You know, and so I think it's been a real journey of kind of learning to love and real, like I kind of hold it up against that First Corinthians 13 reading when I'm doing my two-way prayer and that. And what I see from that is, that it's not boastful, it's not prideful, that love is, keeps no records of wrong. It's patient, it's kind, like, and when I think of somebody who's humble and acting with humility, I would say that I think it's that, Uh, you know, and uh, uh, and like you said, my instinct is not to have humility, but I can find humility in the moments of honesty inside my step work and inside my inventories and inside, my surrendering my defects to try to get help with them.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Milan. We don't talk enough about that. I mean, like in the old, Greek and Hebrew and those languages, they had so many different words for love, different kinds of love. We just have love. So I love tacos, I love dogs, I love my wife, right? So
Yeah.
that's the only word we have. So we get this dysfunctional view of love, right? And so I love the fact that you brought that up, and I learned that when I first got here. Love is an action, right? I
Mm,
can't say I love my wife and then treat her like crap,
that's
right?
right.
Because you like just what you quoted. Love is patient. Love is kind, right? How can I say I love her if I'm not kind to her, right? And so
Mhm.
I love that comparison to the selflessness as being an act of love. It's not just a word of love. I can't say,
Mm,
"Oh, I love, I love, I love," and then I don't put any action behind the love. Love is an
mhm.
action. It holds
Yeah.
no records of wrong, right? And I want to hold records of wrong. Look at my wife said last week, or look what this my
Mhm.
boss did to me. But that's not love. Love holds no
One
records.
resentment is a record of wrong. One. It
Absolutely.
only takes
Yeah.
one to make a record.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to have to hold on to that stuff and say, "Oh, I love her." No, it doesn't hold records of wrong. And again, I'm not
Mm,
perfect at this, like, just like you are, we're all human, we all struggle. But I'm glad that you brought that correlation up
mm.
to selflessness, humility, and love being an action. So, all right, question number two.
Yes.
How do you know when you're being selfish and self-centeredness?
Oof. You know, uh, my hamster wheel is run on my ego. Like whether it's the compulsive impulsive thoughts of when I want to do drugs or have alcohol, or when it's like I start ruminating negatively about somebody, and that is totally thinking about me, how you're making me unhappy, how I've been wronged by you, what you should be doing, what I deserve, all those kind of thoughts. And so now, I would say, fortunately, through through a lot of step work, through a lot of reflection, through a lot of these podcasts, through meetings, through listening to people, through just trying to surrender to a better life, I can see when I'm off center like that, like um, that feeling of discontent is almost always accompanied by selfishness and self-centeredness for me, and when I'm really feeling free, the day's not about me, and yeah, we'll get into it probably with some of the later questions, but I've had a few real epiphanies of freedom the last couple weeks that I'll share with you later on. But it really was about surrender. When I'm not surrendering, I'm probably being selfish or self-centered in some way
Right.
because I'm holding
That's a,
on to something.
yeah, no, that's a great answer. Really great answer. Yeah, I think at the surface level, Milan, it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy to spot when I'm thinking about what I want over what my wife wants or something, right? On the
Yeah.
surface level, it's pretty easy. It's just when I'm thinking about me more than I'm thinking about others, right? But I think what I've learned, and a matter of fact, I just had some epiphanies in the past since our last podcast. It's amazing. I just celebrated 16 years last Sunday, and I'm still having epiphanies because I'm teachable, right? We're like you said, one of the other podcasts that really struck me is we're seekers, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the people that, as they told me when I got here, if you're not growing, you're going, right? So I'm still
Yeah.
always trying to seek and learn, and
Mhm.
and so I had an epiphany within the last, like I said, since we did the last podcast, of how this selfishness, self-centeredness can get underlying. You know how Bill talks about we have bad motives under good motives,
Yep.
and then sometimes things lie at the level of subconsciousness. So on a conscious level, yeah, it's just me thinking about more about what I want than others. But on a subconscious level, it's thinking that everything revolves around me. And so here's my little story for you. So I have a really good friend, and he I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I started thinking, why is this guy talking to me this way? Why is he treating me this way? We're supposed to be better friends, blah, blah, blah. And then it literally, that went on a couple of days. And then it hit me a couple of days later. That's the selfish and self-centeredness. I never once thought to think of what he's going through, what maybe did I do something? Was I not as good a friend as I should have been?
Mhm.
See, that's recovery. It brings it back to focusing on me. But for those couple of days, I was like, I can't believe this guy said this. I can't believe he treated me. It becomes all about me. And so at a subconscious level, underneath all of that, when I start wondering why people are treating me a certain way, or, why are they doing this to me? That's still the selfish and self-centeredness. And then I finally got, after a couple of days, in this place of, hold on, I don't know what he's going through. Hurting people hurt people. Let me try to just be a better friend. And lo and behold, Milan, when I did all that, everything was great. So either one of two things happened. Either it was all fabricated in my head, which is probably 99% true, or maybe there was some things that I did that rubbed him the wrong way I didn't know about, but by me trying to be a better friend and put that love into action, change that. I don't know. But I know it can't be all about me all the time, or I start to have problems, right? So,
I really, I think one of the things that's come to me a lot when I'm trying to ask the question of learning how to love more completely in my two-way prayer is listen, not seek to be heard. Understand, not seek to be understood. Like, it rarely solves a conflictual situation when I'm like, you didn't hear me, Oh, you just don't understand what I'm trying to say. Like we're throwing an insult at a person, basically telling them that they're either stupid or not listening, and that us talking more is going to resolve that. Like how ego driven is that thought and moment at that very second, you know? And so yeah, it's exactly like what you were just saying though, that I've had a couple situations where I'm like, I'm not understanding where they're coming from at all. Like, you know, like trying to get my point across further is just me still sitting in me. You know, it's amazing once you start to look for the telltale signs of ego and selfish and self-centered and self-seeking, how deep that stuff runs in us. You know, like I'm not sure if it was you or somebody else that was on here, but you know, it's like they said, you you can't get fully rid of the ego. It's like you could smack them down, you can beat them up, but it's the fastest growing weed on earth. You know? Yeah. Okie dokie. Are you ready for another question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, self centered life always asks, what can I get? And the spiritual life asks, how can I give? How has giving replaced taking as a source of fulfillment in your recovery?
Ooh, that's a good answer. Well, so again, Milan, I always want, they taught me honesty is the first basic principle that I learned here, right? So I have to be honest with you. It's still not my strong suit, right? After all this time I've been here, is like, oh, let me think of somebody else before me. My first thought is always about me, right? But I have to get past those, like you said, past that ego that this that grew up overnight after I picked it out of the garden, right? I like your weed analogy, right? I just plucked that 2 days ago. I
Yeah,
was good. Why's the ego back? Right, fastest growing weed.
strongest
But
roots.
yeah, absolutely. And so I'm glad that when I got here, right, they taught me, right, willingness and want to have nothing to do with each other. Right. And
Mm.
so even today, I've got like, well, now I'm down to 4 sponsees. I had 5 sponsees I was in the book with. I got one of them finished 12, step 12. So I got four. But I really don't want to work with four guys after work. And I've got all the, I'm tired and right. And so it's still, even all these years later, it's, oh, I'm tired, I want to go home and watch TV, or I want to go be, do this. No, they taught me, it doesn't matter what I want, I need to help the next guy. They helped me, I need to help him. And so I just go do it. I just go put myself on the service plane because they told me that's what I have to do. And now, and here's the flip side of that. Once I do that, then I'm like, man, this is so great. I'm glad I came and worked with this guy. Oh, this is so great. I'm glad I went to this meeting. Oh, this is so great. I'm glad I called my sponsor. But so it still shows me after all these years in the program, being like, I don't know what's good for me, right? If I got my own way, I'd be sitting at home, lazy and not doing anything, and probably back to drinking before too long, right? And so I like the fact that they just taught me about this altruism, right? Because it says it's an altruistic program, and like you, I didn't know what altruistic meant, so I had to go get the dictionary, and it's putting others' needs ahead of my own. So even though I'm tired, this guy's fighting for his life. I've got all this time. I'm not thinking about drinking. I'm not fighting for my life. I'm just a little tired and want to go home and put my feet up and watch some TV. How selfish is that when this guy has got 2 weeks sober and he's fighting for his life? Right. And so that just sort of puts it all back in perspective. Is like, hold on, hold on. Let me just go suit up and show up for this guy. And again, innately, when I do that, then I get all these rewards and makes my life better. I'll end with this. I always thought this was funny. So there was a commercial back in the 80s. It's a cocaine commercial, right? I do cocaine so I can work harder, so I can make more money, so I can do more cocaine, so I can work harder, so I can make more money, so I can do more cocaine, right? It's that commercial they used to have on the 80s, right? But that's sort of like this program, right? I go help these guys, right? Because they helped me. And then when I go help these guys, I get so much blessing out of it that I have to now go help more people. And then I get so much blessing out of it's still the same cycle, but it's a healthy cycle. It's a good cycle. It's a fulfilling cycle, right?
I love that. You know, it. I love that you pointed out that you still don't know what's good for you because it's, it is the common thing where people start to recover a little bit and then they start to trust this brain that got them waist deep in the shit to begin with. Like, I had a friend on the podcast a week ago, and in one of her questions was, she said, well, some people believe that not going to meetings will cause you to relapse, and she says, what do you believe this or not? And I said, I don't know. I've never stopped going, so I'll never find out. Like I don't need to jump in a pond of boiling water to see if I'm boil resistant, but I do know that walking the path I'm walking right now is working. And so, how has giving replaced taking as a source of fulfillment in my recovery? I was always on the take, whether it was energetically, whether it was, to re up, to make more money. Like, in some ways, I find myself much less ambitious economically now that I'm running a good program because I just don't need as much. Why? Because I have an inner contentment. So, being of service, starting and hosting meetings. Like I host a meeting every other Saturday at my house, like people come here into my house and I have three sponsees. I had five at one point. I'll tell you, like five is
Yeah.
too much for me with my family. Like they begin to feel neglected and then I'm not in balance. Like I couldn't juggle five without it starting to deteriorate my program where it was making me anxious about delivering the best me in all circumstances. And so right now I have three. I still put up my hand at meetings because if somebody was really in need, I would be there. I'll still call a newcomer and make sure he's got a ride to the meeting. But, like the moments that I have been sharing with the people that I've been of service of have been the most fulfilling moments of my life this last few months. Like watching people reemerge from their ashes like phoenixes and learn how to laugh again and smile and learn how to read again. Like, I don't know about you, man, but when I rolled into treatment, I could barely read. Like, I couldn't focus long enough to digest a half a page, you know? And now I'm reading all the time with things. And I'm also, helping facilitate other people rebuild their brains and their reading. And it is bringing me so much joy. Like that source of fulfillment is knowing I'm on the right path. Like um, service service does a service, but what it also does is for me, it takes away my doubt of self. When I'm doing a moment of service, I'm not doubting whether I'm doing the right thing or the wrong thing, you know? And there's something inside that I can honestly say I probably never felt before this in my life, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's great, Milan. I'd like to do one of our next few podcasts on relapse. I think it would be a really interesting
Okay.
podcast on the process of relapse. So I don't want to go like too much into that, but I do want to just talk for a couple of minutes on some couple things that you said that sparked some things for me.
Yeah.
Number one of my friends in the program, I think he just celebrated 25 years or something. Got a lot of
Mhm.
time. He says, you know how many meetings that you need to stay sober? Start cutting those back, and when you relapse, that was one too too many.
that's a dangerous game of chance.
Yeah. So exactly like you just said, I'm not trying to find out.
I have no
And then my
desire to find out.
yeah, and
Like,
then my sponsor said this. I love my sponsor. If you don't love your sponsor, if you're out there listening and you don't think you have the best sponsor on the planet, you might want to start looking for another sponsor. I mean,
yeah,
that's just me. And that's my personal opinion. I need to trust the guy. I need to love the guy. I need to this somebody that that I can be fully in with. But
That
so I
trust
love
has
my
to be there so deep.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I love my sponsor, but he said this one time, and it just like floored me. He says, I have a disease that's always trying to convince me to stop doing what's good for me. Let that
Yeah.
soak into your soul for a minute, right? Well, I
Yep.
have a disease that's like, I mean, and when I say a disease, Milan, I don't mean just about the alcohol. I
Yeah.
mean on every aspect of my life, right? So I have a disease, right, that's trying to get me to not do everything that's good for me. Like, so my wife wants to go to marriage counseling. Say like we're struggling, we're not, but I'm just saying if that were a
Mhm.
scenario, and then my mind is like, oh, I don't want to go to. Why is my mind always trying to get me not to do things that are going to be good for me? Marriage counseling is going to help me. Me and my wife went for a year after I relapsed 16 years ago. It's the best thing I ever did. But I didn't want to go. She gave me an
Mhm.
ultimatum of we're not going to get married if you don't go because the relapse hurt me. So I went. And it was great. Why is my mind always trying to not get me to do things that are good for me? I think that's our last podcast on self-sabotage and all that, right?
It's self-forgiveness, man. It's self-forgiveness. I'm telling you.
Yeah. And so, anyways, back to the relapse deal of this thing, because the when she asked you that question, right, about the whole process of the relapse, that happened to me, Milan. And so what I tell everybody, and people look at me like I've lost my mind and I got three heads. I say I found the one potential flaw in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mhm.
You know what that potential flaw is?
What?
Everything gets good. Everything, my
Oh,
life
yeah.
gets good. I get a good job. I get money. I get relationships. Everything gets good. Why is that a potential flaw? Because the book tells me I can't remember the pain and suffering of a week or a month ago. So if you take a guy that can't remember the pain and suffering of a week or a month ago, and you let everything get really, really good in his life, that can be a recipe for disaster if I'm not plugged into the program and the
Mhm.
God who helps me to remember, right? And so that's why everybody relapses. You just said it. Everything gets good. I forget how bad it was. Maybe I'm not, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I got control. Maybe I don't need to really be doing all this. And I start resting on my laurels, like the book says, and then I relapse, right? And so, I mean, and again, this is a whole nother topic in a whole nother 2 hours, but I really want the new guy to hear this, man. Meeting makers don't make it. Meeting makers make meetings. I was going to 13 meetings a week when I relapsed the first time 16 years ago. But meetings are super important. Well, then why do I go to meetings? Because meetings keep me tapped into the power. My sponsor keeps me tapped into the power. Working with the sponsee keeps me tapped into the power. Going and doing volunteer work at the treatment center keeps me tapped into the power. So all these things are super important to keep me tapped into the power. But if I'm just going to a meeting just to see my friend or to look at this girl that's at the meeting or whatever, there's no power in the meetings in and of themselves. If I'm going
Mhm.
to meetings to listen, to learn, to see what God's trying to speak to me, see who else there in the meeting I can help, if I'm going with the right motives, right, then
Mhm.
the meetings are awesome and the meetings keep me tapped into God. But when I relapsed, I was going to the meeting so I could see all my sponsees talk about what a great sponsor I was. No wonder I relapsed, right? It's that
Yep.
ego, it's that pride, it's that bad motives under good motives. So, but again, that's a whole nother podcast. But you just reminded me of that when you talked about the question that the girl asked you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, getting back to this podcast. what does what does the book mean when it says selfishness and self-centeredness are the root of our troubles? What does that mean?
Well, okay. Basically, for me, what what I believe that means is, you know, our problems are all caused by our perception and our preferences, and so I believe that our selfishness and self-centeredness obscures the truth of what we see, and through that lack of clarity, we become discontent. And with that discontentment, we then reflect this discontentment to a world that we didn't even really see clearly because we're allowing ourselves to our happiness instead of like what we have is a daily reprieve contingent on our maintenance of our spiritual condition. Well, when we're self-centered and selfish, what we have is contentment contingent upon our perception of others' actions. And so we're puppets, you know? And so when we think that there's a trouble, like when I look back at my step work, I my first set of steps, I was like, I cannot believe how deluded I was and how much I believed it. You know, like my first step four, I thought there was going to be a lineup of people going out the door, single file line. I wanted nice orderly. I wanted of apologies. I thought I was going to have like ironclad arguments. I'm like, finally, I've got the tools to really show how you've hurt me. And then it was like my part, my part, my part, my part. And I saw over and over again, much to my chagrin, dismay, and then elation at the end, that it was me and it was all me. And it was all how I was seeing, perceiving, and based on everything having to be for me, about me, like deserving me, like that whole thing, like I deserve this. Gosh, I think of that phrase inside my earlier years and how I played that into a pity party, you know? So, yeah, I would say that that's my answer for that.
A great answer. That's a really, really good answer. Yeah. I wish he didn't say rude, Milan. I just wish he would have said, hey, selfishness, self-centered is just a little problem like everything else in my life, just a character defect I need to get rid of.
Hmm.
But that's not what he said. It's the root of all my problems. So all my character defects stem off of the root, the
Mm.
deep root of selfishness, self-centeredness, right?
Mm.
So that ought to be in the very beginning. That ought to make me take notice, right? It's not like I'm just like, I sort of look at it like a tree, right? You got this branch that's dishonesty, right? And you cut that branch off, and you just, by trying to be more honest, and you work on that. And then you got these other branch, it's another defect, and with God's help, you lop that off over, and you start to prune this tree, right? But the roots self-centeredness. And so I'm gonna have to pull them suckers out, or at least like put poison on them where they're not as deep and it's not as strong, or some that it's the root of all my problems. And then he goes on to say, Milan, he has the audacity to say that my troubles are of my own making. Well, no, 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 hold on. You didn't see what my boss said to me, or how this person treated me, or how's it my own making? And it's just exactly what you just said. I never looked at my part. Bill says to see where others were wrong was as far as I got. I never saw what I did or how my actions affected that, or how, even if my actions didn't cause that, what can I do to make that better? How can I diffuse that situation, change my perception, like you were talking about, right? They did this to me. And that's as far as I ever got. And so all of my problems were of my own making, right? And so at the root of all of that. It's interesting. He says this, when he talks about the seven deadly sins, he said pride leads to procession, right? So think about this, Milan. Pride and ego, right, cannot exist with selflessness. If I'm
Mm.
thinking about you, if I'm thinking about loving you, helping you, whatever, there can be no pride and ego in that situation. So then the pride and ego only exists when I'm thinking about me. I can't believe they said that to me. Oh, why didn't I get this raise at work? Well, whatever. That's the pride that heads the procession, right? And it's at the root of all of my troubles, right? And so not only is that a scary verse, root of my troubles, my problems are my own making, but it's also an insightful verse. Oh, so if I can work on the pride and the ego, work on the selfish, self-centered, try to start thinking about others and being selfless, then maybe those roots will start to diminish, take less hold, and I won't be manufacturing all of this chaos, causing all these problems in my life. And so I think that's a really good couple of paragraphs to read in the literature about It's the root of all of our problems, because I don't want to try to solve. So here's the problem, Milan, for me, right? I don't ever know the causes and conditions. I just like, oh, this guy made me mad, right? This guy made me mad, right? But recovery is like, well, hold on, why did he make you mad? Oh, because when you were a kid and your dad didn't pay you attention, that brought back up that memory for you when this guy treated you this way. And see, that's recovery, all right? But I don't ever look at that stuff of, okay, what caused all that stuff, right? And so it's at the root of all of my problems is that everything becomes about me instead of back focus and outward.
Nice. I love that. Okay. Are you ready for a question?
I am.
Living clean teaches us that self obsession is the great thief of serenity. What daily practices help you quiet the voice of self centered fear?
That's a good question, Milan. I mean, obviously prayer and meditation, right? The book is big on prayer and meditation. So I asked the sunlight of my sponsor literally told me this a few weeks ago. And it sort of sounds hokey when he first said it, but then I sort of ruminated on it for a few days. He's like, when you pray, let that sun just wash over you and cleanse you. And I'm sitting in the car with him going, what is he talking? You know what I'm saying? It sounds sort of hokey. But over the next couple of days, I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. It's literally letting God's grace and love and everything wash over me and take away those obsessions and fears. And then two, Milan, is I've been around long enough where I've learned a few things. I don't know any. It's like we talked about anymore. I don't trust my mind any more than I did 16 years ago. But I have a little bit more knowledge because I've been around, right? I've learned some things, and so the first thing that I learned that fear is non-existent. It's false events appear real 99% of the time. Now, if I'm standing in front of a cobra that's fixing to bite me, that's a legitimate fear. If I'm standing in the street and the cars are coming, then that's a legitimate fear in the moment. I need to get out of the road. But 99% of the time when I have a fear, it's false events appear real. It's this thing in my head that's probably not even going to materialize, right? And so that's when, like you say, I start obsessing on it and do all that. So the first thing, Milan, and I think we might have talked about this a little bit in the other podcast before, but it is at the core of my recovery that faith and fear cannot coexist. That if I am fearful, I'm not trusting God. If I'm
Mm.
trusting God, I cannot be fearful. Now, doesn't mean I don't ever get in fear because I'm human, right? But when I get in that fear, right, it doesn't take me long to say, okay, hold on, this is a step 3 problem. I'm not trusting God, right? I
Mm.
heard this guy say one time, it was in a meeting, it's really like profound to me. He says, when I have regret, I'm saying that God got it wrong. When I have fear, I'm saying that God's not going to get it right. Wow. Okay. It's all
Mm.
step 3 problem. It's all not trusting God. It's all. And so I really try to get in this practice of trusting God to get me out of that fear and that obsession over the fear.
So, what things do you do that helps you build that trust? Like, what are
Yeah. So,
specific things instead of just kind of a general thing? Like, I mean, for
yeah.
somebody who's brand new, they're like, well, I could say I trust God, but until it
Yeah,
happens,
for
they don't
sure.
know, right?
Yeah. Well, faith is built, so faith comes over time, in increments. But yeah, specifically, what do I do? Pray and meditate, right? I pray and meditate. I let him. I ask him for the serenity to calm the fear, and if I'm new, I ask him to help me trust, help me to be willing, right? If I'm not willing, help me to be willing. If I don't trust, help me to trust, right? So the prayer and meditation is huge. The second most important thing for me, if somebody asks me what is the most 16 years in, what is the most important thing you do in your program? And it's calling my sponsor twice a week and talking about everything that's going on, right? Because when I get in fear, I can't get out of that, right? This is what I need the newcomer to hear. If you're in fear, you can't get out of that because you put yourself in fear. If you're angry, you can't get out of that because you're the one that put yourself in the anger. If you're having any negative, adverse emotions, you can't get out of that because you put yourself there. Right. And so I learned that early on. So when I get in those places, I can't get out of it. So I call my sponsor, and then we start getting back into reality and back into what's going on and solution and what steps I can take. And that takes the fear from me. So that's the two top things for me: praying and meditating,
Mm-hmm.
and processing all this stuff with my sponsor or somebody on my support team.
I love that. Okay, the Living Clean teaches that self obsession is the great thief of serenity. What daily practices help me quiet the voice of self centered fear? Well, okay, first off, for me, I would say that practicing better sleep habits. That for me, if I'm not rested, I am absolutely ending up coming from more self-centered and more fear-based place. I've just proven it to myself. Rest is definitely massively in there. Exercise is also definitely in there for me. I need to like burn off some of my own craziness with action. And then, I start my day with readings, and hopefully those, what I'm reading and what I'm looking at is taking me to a different place of thought and concept and connection, really, with things that are beyond just a self-centered thought. And then I do two-way prayer, which, for me is literally almost like asking for guidance for shitty events in advance. Like I'm using that as almost like a preemptive way. And 90% of the responses are directing me out of selfish things. They're directing me to service, and the other 10% are probably just my own ego slipping some shit in the list anyway. Like, and then, you know, um, and then I go walking, and walking is kind of my thing these days. And on that walk is when I do my kind of out loud prayer, connecting with the universe. And at that point, you know, um, I'm either praying gratitude for fears that I'm experiencing, like for the opposite result, that for those, like I pray for the faith I've received that's taken away my anxiety. Even when I'm still experiencing anxiety, there is some faith that is keeping, like I could be more anxious. There is like I'm praying gratitude for the love that's replacing anger, even if I feel angry, because there still is some modicum of love in my heart. And I believe that those things grow with a greater willingness, with a greater surrender, with a greater gratitude at them. And so a lot of a lot of what I'm being grateful for is that part of the universe that I'm now connected with, and that I feel the connection with. And so that really helps me. And then, self-centered fear, like Darren was saying, like that faith and fear don't exist in the same place there. And I do a lot of service, and when I'm sitting there working with a sponsee, or even working with my sponsor, or just chairing and setting up for a meeting, like I'm busy with literally physical or mental actions that aren't about me, and that's how I can keep that hamster wheel not about me anymore.
Right.
And so, do you have another question for me, Darren?
Yes, I do. So, the book talks about step four, there's causes and conditions, right? Things that cause me to be here and conditions that set me up to here. So, what causes the selfishness, self-centeredness?
Oh, well, I would say it's the fear, like according to what I've learned, and this might be a simplified version of it, but it's the fear of losing something I have, or the fear of not getting something I want. Like, and so, I mean, I'm not really sure how to expand on that, like, because I think that is like the perfect definition for it. But it's absolutely, we're designed in this society from consumerism from the moment of the get go, just like we spoke of earlier. This society is telling me that I am not enough, that I don't have enough, and that external things are going to make me happy. And consequently, then, if we buy into everything that they bombard us with, then also external things are what's making me unhappy. And then I begin to blame everything around me. And I think I'm gonna leave that one there. I'm not sure if that was too short for what you were
Yeah,
expecting, but I thought that's kind of what I've been taught, and pretty consistently from different friends and sponsors and everything. What about you?
it's a great answer. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the Matrix movie. It's like one of my
Yep.
all-time favorite movies. And me
Hmm.
and my sponsor, he talks about that sometime because we live in the Matrix, right? And when I say the Matrix, people look at me like, "Ah, you think we live in a computer?" No, not like literally in the Matrix. In the Matrix of the consumerism, in the Matrix
Yeah.
of if I have enough, if I can get enough, if I can keep up with my neighbors, then I'll be happy. It's that it's that construct, if you will, right? That sort of gears us and propels us to be selfish and self-centeredness, to get mine, to work harder, to have more, to do all this stuff, and to break out of the matrix, if you will. To break out of that construct is hard because we're bombarded with it every day. And so that's why we're grateful. Me and you are grateful that we're in a program that forces us to break out of the construct, the matrix, right? Okay, stop trying to please yourself. Let's stop trying to please others. It forces us to break free from that. So I just wanted to throw that in before I answered the
Mm.
question. So there's actually four answers to this question. They come straight from the book, Milan, right? Everything I get is the
Mm.
answers in the book.
Yeah.
And the first one is exactly what you said. It says, I'm driven by 100 forms of fear. Specifically, exactly what you said, fear that I'm not going to get something I want or I'm going to lose something that I have. Exactly what you said, right? At the base of everything of the selfish self-centeredness, it's I'm going to lose something that I have or I'm not going to get something I want, right? And so I really want you and the audience to stop and think about this on a deeper level. Let's ingest this whole concept of what you spoke of and what I spoke of, and let's look at it for what it really is. When I say, oh, I don't want to lose this, I have fear that I'm going to lose something, that that's me saying that I'm supposed to keep this. How do I know I'm supposed to keep it? Maybe God's trying to take it from me. Maybe I'm in a bad relationship and He's trying to dissolve it. Maybe I'm in a bad work position and He's trying to dissolve it. Why am I trying to hang on to things when I don't even know if they're good for me? If I don't even know if this is what God wants me to have. So, just in that fear that I'm going to lose something I have is the lack of trust that God knows what He's doing and that maybe I'm not supposed to have this. So again, it's a faith question with the fear, right? And then the second part of that, I'm not going to get something I want. It's the same thing, Milan. I'm saying that God really didn't know what's best for me, right? Because I need to get this job, not that job, God, right? And so the whole thing of the fear of not getting what I want or losing something I have is me saying that I know better than God, right? And to prove that's true, because you've been here a little while now, how many times in recovery or even before you got in recovery, just in your life, have you said to yourself, thank God I didn't get that what I really wanted? You know what I'm saying? How many
Yeah.
times did I really want something to work or to get or a job or a relationship or something? And then I'll look back later and be like, thank God that didn't happen. That'd have been the worst thing in the world for me. So again, it shows me I don't know what's best for me. I don't know what I'm supposed to keep. I don't know what I'm supposed to get. So getting in the fear of the things that I don't know I'm supposed to keep and I know I'm supposed to get is number one, it's stupid
Hmm.
because it's a lack of faith. It's okay, God, if I'm supposed to keep this, help me to keep it. If not, take it away. If I'm supposed to get this, help me to have it. If I'm not, then keep me from getting it. It's that faith that blocks out that fear of me not of losing something I have or not getting something I want. The second thing he says is 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, right? And so self-delusion, we've already talked about a little bit before. Everything is about me. Why are they talking about me? Why didn't they invite me to that party? Well, it's this delusional state I live in that the world somehow centers around me. Maybe they didn't invite me because they had a limit on the funds, or maybe they didn't think about it. Maybe well, the world doesn't have to revolve around me. It's that delusion that everything revolves around me. Why are they treating me? Well, I heard a guy in a meeting one time, Milan. I always thought this funny. He says, I'm convinced that the guy doesn't get up 10 minutes early and get on the freeway just so he can cut me off. That's not the way it happens. The guy just happened to not look and see me there when he switched lanes and cut me off. But I think everything is I'm in this delusion that the world revolves around me. It doesn't. I'm just one human in a revolving world, and things just happen. They don't happen to me. They just happen, right? And then the third thing he says, self-seeking. Fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, right? And that's trying to get my own way, manipulating the outcome, right? And so they taught me at a very simple level when I got here, Milan. I'm supposed to pray to God, right? Do the action, pray to God, and then leave the results up to Him. If I'm in the results business, then I'm self-seeking. I'm trying to manipulate the outcome. And it goes back to even what you were talking about before of trying to get my point across, trying to be understood. That's me manipulating the situation instead of just doing my part, saying what I need to say, and then letting God work on that person's heart and get the message across and do the results, right? So very, very important. And then the last one, it says 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, right? And so self-pity, I like that because we think, oh, pride, ego, that's a bad thing. But self-pity, you should feel no, self-pity, they says, is pride and ego in reverse.
Yeah.
It's just as bad, right? And I know you talked about that in one of our other podcasts about you were the king of pity
The
parties, right?
Prince of
Before
Pity
you got here.
Parties.
Prince of pity parties. But that's another form of this selfish self-centeredness.
Yeah.
And I don't think so, because I can spot the ones that look outward. Right? Oh, I'm being selfish. I'm thinking about me more than my wife. But it's hard to spot the ones that are inward. Oh, poor me. Nobody cares about me. I'm stuck in this situation. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough. That pity is still, I'm focused on me. It's all about me. I'm self-centered, right? And so I really need to watch out for those four things, right? Fear, self-seeking, self-delusion, and self-pity. But specifically that self-pity, because it's sneaky. I think that I sort of deserve the self-pity, and people should think, no, it's pride in reverse. It's self-centeredness. It's still me thinking about me all the time. And I got to break that cycle as well.
Yeah, the self pity one is, you know, honestly, I feel like it's as prevalent as weather conversation. I look back and I had friends that it was like our entire friendship was to out pity party each other on the phone. But it's just like the same thing as like, hey Darren, how's it going? Well, it's sunny today, and it's going to be, tomorrow's going to rain. And some people use it as topics of conversation, and it's just like an instinctual response. Oh yeah, I had this crash the other day. Oh yeah, well mine crashed even worse and caught on fire. It's funny how we out catastrophize each other. Like
And that's a great point, Milan. I never really thought about it on like just the everyday level of just,
social function.
yeah, because the book tells us, my problem is I substitute negative thinking for positive thinking. It goes back to our first podcast of the gratitude. But I'm not thinking when I'm on this phone call, oh, let me tell Milan all the great things that God is doing for me and all the great things that I learned in recovery. Let me try to lift Milan up. Let me try to be positive, be part of the solution. I'm thinking, yeah, you're not going to believe what my boss said to me last week, Milan. Oh, look, the tariffs are coming up and we could be in trouble at work. So you're right. And I don't even think about that's part of the self pity way on a conscious level that I don't even realize that I'm in the negativity and the self-centeredness and the self-pity. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I just really, it was one of the delusions that I just didn't see. I just didn't see it. I just thought that I was having a really hard part of my life. And what it was I was mastering the pity party. It was like, man, you'd be pitying me within 5 seconds. 2 sentences, and Darren would be like, oh, poor you. Okay, the big book reminds us that when we let self run riot, we step on the toes of our fellows and invite chaos. How has your awareness of self helped you prevent unnecessary conflict?
Wow. Well, so let me just throw this in there, Milan, because Bill was sarcastic. He had a sense of humor, but he was sarcastic. He was one of us, so it's probably why he threw this in. But he says we step on the toes of our fellows; they retaliate, seemingly without provocation. So I think it's like, what's his problem, right?
Yeah,
I don't even know that right, seemingly without provocation. What is this guy's problem?
yeah.
But then we invariably find that at some point we in the past we placed our position, we made a decision based on self and placed ourselves in a position to be heard, right? And so that was like a big aha moment for me. Oh crap. Because so here's what happened to me, Milan. So this when I got here in 2006, my wife was filing for divorce and taking my daughter from me, and we had family day up at the treatment center. And she's like, "I'm not coming to family day. I'm done with you." That hurt my feelings, Milan. That hurt my feelings. You're not going to come support me. I can't believe it's supposed to be so death do you part. What? And then it hit me like, man, I was a piece of crap to that woman. I treated her so horrible all those years. We were married 12 years, and I was a horrible husband. And to my defense, I was using, and I didn't know anything about humility and God and all that, but I was horrible to her. And so, wow, oh, you mean she didn't come to the thing because of all the decisions I made on based on self? That I placed myself in that position to be hurt. And so that was early on. That was like a week or two into in the treatment center, even that I started having this moment of clarity about, wow, so fast forward today, right? To get back to your question, right, is that I have realized that so I want to say this in the most loving way so people don't get thrown off about my next comment. I control everything around me. And people are like, hold on, I thought, no, really, I control my reaction to you, right? Right. And so 99% of the time, if I can control my reaction for you, if I cannot make these decisions based on self and place my position to be hurt, me and you are going to be in a good place. Now, let's say it's that 1% where you're just a horrible person and it doesn't matter what I do, then I can still control that. I have a boundary. We can't be friends. I got to remove myself from that situation. So I control my hula hoop. Right? I don't control the universe. See, that's what I thought when I got here. It's the control of the universe. No, but a lot of people in recovery get it backwards, Milan. They say, "Oh, I can't control anything because I got to lose control. I got to give up self and control and turn everything over to God." No, I turn the universe over to God. I'm in charge of me, my reactions, the way I treat you, the way I respond to you, boundaries I put up if you're not treating me well, all those things. And so recovery has taught me that I am the one that controls my hula hoop. And so let me give you an example going back to your question. So if my wife comes up and says something to me, maybe she gets a tone or she says something, I have the choice today, the choice. I don't have a choice whether I drink or not, right? I've lost that choice. God gives me that choice. But I have the choice of whether I say, "What the hell is your problem?" like I did with my first wife, or if I say, "Hold on, baby, that hurt my feelings when you said that. Did I do something?" I have that choice. And so invariably when I do that, my wife will be like, "Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I had a bad day at work. I didn't mean to take that up." It was never really anything. Milan. It was just all in my head. And now my reaction is going to throw fuel to the fire, and I'm going to place myself in a position to sleep on the couch for 2 weeks, right? Right.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that it's okay, hold on. My reaction is going to dictate whether we're going to have problems in here or not, right? It's that I really have to work on my reaction to things so that I don't make decisions based out of self and place myself in these positions to be hurt. I hope that answered your question.
I think it did entirely. That was quite amazing, actually. I love your mind, dude, and I love the way you think. It's inspiring for me.
Thank you.
Okay, so how has my awareness of self will helped me prevent unnecessary conflict? Well, I think that there's times now that I recognize it that I didn't before. Like I said, I really feel that I bought all of my delusions before I got the tools of the steps and of the program, and you know, I think uh, what it does for me now too is it lets me calibrate what I'm doing or what I've just done against what my overall intentions of principle are. Where's my motivation and why is there a discrepancy and how can I change that? You know, because I can still, like one of the things that has been a big shift for me in the last couple of weeks is really an awareness of what it takes for the sixth step. We're entirely ready, to have God remove these defects of characters. Well, a big part of that is not only my awareness, but it's like a fundamental understanding of my motivations and my fears and everything behind it, like a three-dimensional view. I almost feel like it is from like all angles because if I don't have a really clear picture of that, it's like when they say be careful what you wish for. Well, I could wish for wealth and have cancer the next day, like, and it's just like the picture has to be entirely clear for us to know what we're ready to have removed. But then also, I have to be aware of my actions inside that and also what it's going to take in my behavior change for that to be different. And I have to be willing to walk through the fire of not just repeating that defective action in a shortcoming manner. Like if I want to stop being angry, I have to start being quicker at seeing my part in this. I have to start being quicker to love and to forgive, and I truly believe that, our higher power only does for us what we can't do. Like, and I think some people, like maybe myself, when I came into the program, it's like, yeah, I'm entirely ready. I had no fucking clue what being entirely ready was. I'm entirely ready. Fix me. And it's like, no, no. It's like, here's a toolkit. Start working, Milan. And that's really what it was. And so now I'm actually getting to the point where in the last couple of weeks I've had some really fundamental moments where I'm in my prayer and verbally in my prayer where I'm surrendering something, and I know what it is I'm surrendering, and I know what it is I have to stop doing inside that, but I just don't know how to implement the change, and that's where that surrendering occurs, because then it's like that my higher powers show me a way to do that. I'm not sure if I answered my own question, but that's really what's been
Great.
on my heart.
That was great. Eh, you know what, Milan? I really want everybody to hear this. I want you to hear this. I want me to hear myself saying this.
Yeah.
Sobriety is easy. Recovery is hard. See, there are
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know that they're two different things.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that recovery and sobriety are the same thing. They are not.
Yeah.
Right? The book says we feel a man is unthinking to say that sobriety is enough. Right? There's sobriety and then there's recovery. And sobriety is easy. I don't think about drinking. Right? It's been removed from me.
Yeah.
Recovery, on the other hand, bro, I'm working every day trying to recover. That's why it says I have a daily from the alcoholism, the ism,
Mm.
the spiritual malady that I'm trying to recover from, right? So
Mm.
recovery is hard, right? And so you just made me think about this because I have a sponsee and me and him talk about awareness all the time. Awareness is like half the battle, awareness. So think about it. In step one, it's a two-part thing, right? I'm powerless and I'm unmanageable, right? And then
Mm.
I get to step 11 and it's a two-part thing, awareness and action, right? The knowledge of his will, power to carry it out, awareness and action. But what you made me think about when you were saying that is because, so let me back up just a second. So I had this problem, this thing that I'm working on, and it's one of those things you can't, sometimes you just say, okay, God, here, take it, and it's gone. And it's good. Sometimes you have to like really work hard on them because for whatever reason you like them or they're just ingrained in you or whatever. So I'm dealing with this one issue with my sponsor, and he said, okay, your homework over the next 2 weeks is to read step 6 and step 7 out of the 12 and 12 every day, right? 6
Mm.
and 7, 6 and 7. And so I've been doing that. And so what it reminded me of when you just said that is 6 and 7 are the same thing as 11. That's the awareness in 6
Mm.
and the action to surrender in 7,
Mm.
right? And so I really, really like that whole concept because, like, let's just face it, Milan. If I don't know that I'm doing something, I'm never going to be able to fix it. And so the awareness
It would
has
be
to
like
be
a
half
one
the,
in a billion chance.
yeah, so I have to, okay, hold on. It's just like with my alcoholism. If I don't realize I'm an alcoholic, I need help, I'm not going to ever recover. If I was, oh, I'm not really, I didn't drink. No, that awareness that, oh crap, I'm an alcoholic. That's half the battle, right? And
Yeah.
so this awareness in step 6 of, oh, you know what, I'm hanging on to this thing. This is not good for me. I need to surrender this. That awareness is half the battle. And then just like you said, the second half of the battle is, okay, now that I'm aware of it, okay, what does God want me to do? How do I move into action to get rid of this? How do I get into the solution? And a lot of times I need my sponsor to help me with that or other people. But I just thought that was interesting that you were talking about that, and it just reminded me of how much it correlates to 6 and 7. So
Yeah. It says in, I think, the 12 by 12, this is the step that separates the boys from the man,
yeah.
and, uh, and I understand why now. And I didn't. And, it's really amazing actually. And it also, um, it's a hard won victory, but a lesson I'm never going to forget,
Right.
you know? Absolutely.
All right. So the next question sort of piggybacks off of like sobriety is easy, but recovery is hard. And the
Hmm.
question is, why is it so hard to get rid of selfishness and self-centeredness?
Whoa. I, I think, why is it so hard? Well, okay, first of all, I think that the ego is part of us. Like, it's part of the reason we survive. It's part of the reason why we grab food and put it in our mouth to keep moving. It's part of the reason we want to have sex. Like, it is one of our instinctual facets that a certain amount of it is necessary to maintain life. So it'd be like trying to erase one of the centers in our brain. Like it'd be like, hey, it would be way better if we don't remember anything. So let's just try to forget in life. And I don't think we'd be any more successful at remembering nothing. In fact, just by the sake of wanting to stop memory, we're remembering to stop remembering, you know? and and quite frankly, like, so we've had a lifetime of pattern building here. Like, and like we said earlier, it was it's been ingrained into us. I think it's something like, if we watched 3 hours of TV a day as a kid growing up, we saw something like 10,000 commercials a year or something like that, you know, and every single one of those commercials was saying, think about you. Are you thinking about you enough? Have you not thought about you? Because you're not enough, but we can help make you enough. Just buy this. This, like, there's a lack inside you. You're not enough, Darrin. Hey, Darrin, I think that, you know, all those things that are missing in your life are in this bottle. You know, like, and, uh, and so I honestly, I think that we can lessen it, but man, in this society, I think it's almost impossible to not be sucked back into that. You know, even, even like a moment ago, you're like, I want to hear myself say this. Like, you know, that was like, that would be an ego-driven comment of like, hey, I think this is important. What I think is important is something I want people to hear. You know, like our very doing this podcast to think that we're doing anything but helping ourselves. You know, like thinking that we're helping others, that's an ego-driven thought in itself. You know, has it been proven to me that people have said thank you for doing it and that they've learned something from it? Yes. And I'm not saying that there is no service involved in this. But I do think that even us thinking we know what's the right service is an ego thought. Like I I don't think we can get away from it entirely, but I know that the the active manipulating voice of my ego in my brain is silenced in moments of service. And I mean like active service, not just that, like, that's another thing that it's like selfish, self-centered, and self-seeking. Cherry picking our service is not true service. You know, like doing the stuff that we like, hey man, I like chairing meetings. I love chairing meetings. And then I like chair 5 meetings and I'm like, look at me, king of service. Well, who took out the garbage? Okay, I take out the garbage too, but there's a lot of people who would come and chair a meeting who aren't there at the end to take out the garbage. You know? P.S. Take out
Well,
the garbage, everyone.
that's great, Milan. I think that's why me and you get along so well. And we do so well on this podcast because both of us sort of think outside the box a little bit. We're not
Yeah.
hemmed in with our thought process, and me and you think a lot alike on things. And so I really like that whole concept that you brought about the ego, right? This is going to be shocking to some people out there that the ego is not always a bad thing. It's a necessity for survival. It's just like my character defects are God-given assets that are misguided. God gave me these things. I've just taken them out in left field, right? And so I was having this conversation with a sponsee the other day. It's like, is anger bad? Because of
Yep.
anger, I can't have anger. I got to be rid of the anger. Hold on. I thought anger was a natural human emotion. So hold on. What you're telling me is that I'm not supposed to get angry? Hold on. Well, Jesus turned over the temples and the table. Now, if you don't believe, that's just my personal religious belief. You don't have to believe that. Recovery is not religion, but that's just my personal belief. But even in just this regular life, so hold on. So if there's a mugger over there attacking my wife, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fine. She'll be able to take care of what? No, bro, I'm getting angry, Milan. I'm getting angry and I'm going to take care of that mugger. It's a good thing. It's just like with the ego, right? If I'm like, man, I hope this podcast helps somebody, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be helping people. Now, is there a level of ego in that? Yeah, for sure, probably in everything that we do every day. But it's not necessarily a bad thing to hope this podcast helps people.
Yeah.
So I got to be real careful of saying, well, ego's bad, anger's bad, everything is bad. No, these things are natural things, like you said, that God gave me for my survival. It's just when I take them out of, misguide them, right? It's just like with sex, right? Sex, God gave sex to me and my wife. He gave
Mm.
sex to populate the world. It's a union between two people that are in love with each other. But now, if I'm out sleeping with prostitutes, I don't think that's necessarily what God's will is for me. You know what I'm saying? So, or if I'm cheating on my
Yep.
wife or whatever. And so, the book is real clear that it's when I misuse these things, when I misuse
Mhm.
the ego, misuse the anger, when I misuse these God given things for survival and I misuse them for bad. or outside of God's will, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, because literally sin, the definition of sin is just missing the mark, right? God intended this for me and I missed the mark and went over here with it, right? And that's Bill says that's the level of our sins, if you will. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up, because we just automatically think, oh, ego's bad, anger's bad, everything is bad. No, it's how I use this. Because I still tell my wife this sometimes. I'm still a manipulator,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I manipulate good. Like I'm manipulating the sponsee to try to go work with another sponsor. I still use the manipulation, but I try to use it in a positive, good way, in the way that I think God would have me to use it. I don't use it for selfish reasons. I don't use it to hurt people. But I think we still use some of these things where they're just ingrained in us, right?
Well,
Are
and
you
I
going to say
think,
something?
to bounce off what you were just saying there, like to use your anger to save your life's wife, right? Now that is what I would call the correct use of the instinctual drive. To walk around for 4 weeks just being angry at that guy. That's where I feel like the program and spirituality would say forgive. Like you might stop him and win, right? And your wife's alive, and now he's been stopped. But for you to walk around going, that fucking asshole, that fucking asshole, that fucking asshole, that fucking, like, and sorry, anybody out there who didn't want to hear those words for a second. But the thing is, like it's an expression of somebody being angry and just thoughtless. Like that's where it's unhealthy. It's not healthy for you to carry that resentment and that feeling in you. Like that is literally what they're showing us not to do. And it's so anger as an action versus anger as a resentment, I think are two different things.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's exactly right. And that's why I make the comment, Milan, that
Mhm.
recovery is hard, because as an addict, right, as an alcoholic, I've got two modes of operation.
Yeah.
I'm all in or screw everything, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm either like, I'm not going to get angry at all at this guy in the moment, just let my wife defend for herself, whatever, or
Hmm.
I'm going to be angry at this guy for the next 50 years. I don't know any kind of
Yeah.
balance. And
Yeah.
so what recovery teaches me is exactly what you just said. Yes, I'm angry in the moment, but after the situation is gone, I have to forgive and let that go. And so that's why Bill says, when harboring such feelings, he doesn't say when you have feelings, because we would all be screwed. He doesn't say when you have anger, Milan, you block off God and the insanity returns, you're going to drink again. Then nobody would stay sober, right? Because we all
Well,
have anger. It says when I harbor that. So you're 100% right. And that's why it's so hard, I think, sometimes for the newcomer, especially it was for me when I got here, is realizing that there's differences, right? Me getting angry in the moment because somebody said something to me and it tweaked my pride or ego or whatever. And I get like, I've gotten a fight with my boss before because he said something and me and him were hollering and screaming, right? Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it just happened. It was instinctual. It was in the moment. Now, the next day I'm making an amends and I'm, I'm letting that go. And because I don't want to harbor that. And so I'm glad you brought that up, that just because I act on an instinctual feeling or an emotion in the moment is not necessarily always right or wrong. It's, do I harbor that? Do I hold on to it? Do I
mm,
forgive that guy? Just like with my wife, do I go, subdue the mugger,
mm,
right?
mm,
In anger and adrenaline and everything else, and to subdue the mugger. But then after that, let that go, forgive him,
mm.
not hold the resentment, and get that out of my heart. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because a lot of people don't know that there's
Yeah.
differences in that.
And the word resent, right? It's like a sentiment again. Like that
Right.
sentiment is occurring over and over in us. So,
Yeah.
I mean, even if we experience it and even if we act in a shortcoming that we need to make an amends for, it doesn't mean that it turned into a resentment.
Right.
Like a shortcoming does not necessarily dictate a resentment.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
still can dictate you needing to do an amends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's why recovery is so hard. That's why I need a sponsor to help me wade through this. But
Mm,
before I answer this question, Milan, because this just got on my heart, I want to tell this little quick story. So my years ago, my daughter-in-law, my wife's son's My wife's son's wife, our daughter-in-law, got hit by a drunk driver and almost killed her. They literally cut her out of the car, didn't know if she was going to live, right? So she had, for 2 years, she had two little kids, my grandkids, and for 2 years, my wife went over every weekend, because I don't see my wife much during the week between work and she's got sponsees and meetings, and I got some. We don't see a whole lot of each other during the week. Our weekend is time to spend with each other. She was gone every weekend, Milan, for 2 years. Bro, I was thrown off because I'm like, I don't know how to feel. What? Because if I feel sad that I miss my wife, then I'm being an a-hole because she's out doing service work and sacrificing her time to help my daughter-in-law. What
Mm-hmm.
is, I don't know. And so so I talked to my sponsor and he's like, it's okay to feel two emotions at the same time. I said, what? It was mind blowing to me, Milan.
Yeah.
So you
Ooh.
mean I can be proud of her and what she's doing and really love her for sacrificing for, but then also be sad and miss my wife and at the same time? I didn't know I could be sad and miss her and happy and proud of her. So again, recovery is not easy. I need a life coach, if you will, my sponsor,
Mm-hmm.
to help me navigate, because I think as an addict, I just have to have one feeling or another. I either have to resent her or just be happy and ignore my own feelings. No, I can be happy for her and then also recognize my own feelings of sadness and that I miss my wife, right?
Mm.
So just a little quick thing to throw in there that you reminded me of. So back to this question. Why is it so hard to get rid of the selfish self-centeredness? We talked about this earlier. It's ingrained in me, right? It's this consumer mentality. I mean, who out there and listening to the podcast doesn't own a microwave? Why do we have microwaves? Because I don't want to wait 15, 20 minutes in the oven, right? I want to zap it and get it. We're just in that whole consumerism, take care of me, get it quick now mentality. And so it's just like you said, it's ingrained in us from an early age, right? And so I really want you to hear this if you're a newcomer. This was impactful for me. I mean, thousands of things in the book were impactful to me and still are today. But he says a lifetime geared towards self-centeredness is going to take some of us a long, long time to put in reverse to fix, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a alcoholic, so I want things fixed yesterday. I want the quick and easy fix. I don't want to have things take a long, long, long time. But because this lifetime has been geared towards this self-centeredness, it's going to take me a long, long time uh, to do that, right? And it's even after I finish the steps, he says, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Oh, so you mean even after I finish the steps and have some time and have a spiritual awakening, I've still got to watch for the selfishness on a daily basis? Yes, because like we've talked about this whole podcast, it's ingrained in me. Not going to go away. It can be, I can make it better. I can make it less, I can make it, less prevalent in my life. But to think that I'm ever going to get rid of the selfishness altogether, that's not going to happen, right? And then the last thing, I always thought this was humorous, Milan. So think about this. You know the promises, right? We read the
Yep.
promises all the time in meetings, right? And if you look at the promises, they're like these explosive, impactful things, right? Right? The fear of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle. I mean, just bam, bam. But hold on. And then it gets to self-seeking will slip away. Oh, what happened with? Why did you switch gears and say slip away? Because the self-seeking is going to slip away. It's not like the other promises where it just, oh, it happens. I intuitively know. I'm out of this fear. I got a new way of living. Everything is great. Except self-seeking. It's slipping away. It's slowly.
Because it's sneaky and
It's
slippery to
sneaky,
hold
bro.
on to.
It's sneaky. It's ingrained. It's a lifetime geared toward it. And so I'm going to have to, when it comes to selfish and self-centeredness, I'm going to have to be okay with steady, patient improvement. If I'm going to make it long in this program, I'm going to have to work on steady patient improvement and not think, oh, this ego and this selfish and self-centeredness is going to be lifted out of me and everything is going to be great. No, I got to work really hard on a daily basis because it's at the root of all my problems, right?
Love that. Okie dokie. Okay, that one kind of covered. It's funny, once we start getting past a few questions, I'm like, gotta see how much of this has been covered already.
Yeah.
Okay, the 12 and 12 explains that self centered fear is the root of all character defects. What fears still tempt you to fall back into old self centered patterns?
Oh, wow. All of them? Can I just say all of them? No, no. Uh, no, I mean, again, Milan, I think that if I didn't have some concern, see, there's a difference between concern and full blown fear, right? This again, as an addict, I think I'm not even supposed to have any concern. No, concern may be healthy, right? A concern may, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pay the bills. That's a concern. Maybe that prompts me to go out and get a part-time job or do some Ubering or something, right? Because I have a concern. That's different than a fear. I'm not trusting God. Nothing's going to work out. My life's going to be ruined. So I have to, number one, realize that there's a difference between a concern and a fear, right? So I have a lot of concerns, right? But specifically to answer your question, fear, um, money. That's the first one. I'll just be honest with you,
Mm,
right? So I don't necessarily. I mean, when the promise says fear of financial insecurity will leave us, right? I don't know that that means that I know that I'm not going to be like God's not going to drop me on my head, right? That He's not going to like my life is not going to fail, whatever. But I do get worried just in the day to day moments of, oh, this unexpected doctor bill for $500 came up and it wasn't in our budget, and I start to get a little fearful of how we're going to make that work and fear, right? And I literally, so money is one of the things that I still struggle with, a little bit of fear. I don't know. Other than that, I mean, health and getting older, maybe, right? Because my mind tells me I'm 25, but I go play softball, and my body tells me I'm 57. So, literally, here over this past year, I've had some health problems. Not serious, but like some tinnitus ringing in my ear, some vertigo stuff, right? But it's literally forced me in this last year to recognize my mortality, that I'm getting old,
hmm
right? That I'm on the downward side and not the upward side, right? And so there's a little bit of fear in that of growing old and health problems and eventually dying at some point in time. So I do have a few fears here and there, but I will say this though, that they're not consuming fears. Right. I have zero consuming fears today, Milan, because when I get in a fear about something, I know I'm not trusting God. I need to pray and I ask God to help me. And then I immediately call my sponsor. And there's something about calling my sponsor and he's like, okay, well, hold on. Did you think about this? Okay, well, why don't you try doing this? Right. And he gives me some clear cut directions on what to do.
hmm
Then the fear sort of goes away. So I have fear just on a natural human emotional tendency, right? As we all do, but they don't consume me and grip me like they did before I got in recovery. Everything, fear
hmm
just consumed me. Everything was the end of the world. Nothing was going to work out. My life was horrible. I mean, fear just consumed me. There is zero consuming fear in me today. I get fear, but I have the solution and the tools to get out of that rather quickly. So hopefully that answered your.
I love that. So, what fears still tempt me to fall back into old self centered patterns? Yeah, I was pretty close to losing my house earlier this year. Like just cleaning up the fine wreckage of my past. That combined with a very slow market right when I got into recovery was devastating for us. And so it got to a point where the fear was crippling by the end of February. And working with my sponsor, meeting a couple new people in the program, and focusing my prayer on gratitude and really learning a lot more about surrender have helped me immensely on that. And then now, you know, um, I would say that I'm like 90% diminishment on that fear of economic security. And most of the time, it either comes from a lack of sufficient rest or too much caffeine. You know, it's true. Like I don't really drink coffee anymore. I drink tea, and it's just like, but sometimes I'll have a coffee out of the blue, just like a dumb addict, you know, and and it affects me, and so, you know, and then, but it, like you said, like it doesn't become this massive, like overwhelming crisis. Like I felt like when I showed up in treatment, I was coming from crisis after crisis after crisis. Like everything was so fear based, and I would say that, you know, a lot of them have been diminished, but I think that I think that, you know, one of the things that I'm currently been working on is really a feeling of low self worth. And I'm doing a couple step fours now simultaneously through two different ways. And what I'm seeing is that that low sense of self worth brings me back to like that place of pity, you know, where now I'm worried about you treating me right because I'm not treating me right. You know, like one of the things my current sponsor says is like, you know, you are the person in the world responsible for treating you with kindness and respect. You know, you don't give roles to other people. Like as much as I want Darrin to be kind and respect me, it is not Darrin's job. It is Darrin's job to be Darrin. Or, you know, my job is to find my own kindness and my own respect, you know, because then I don't need yours, you know. And so yeah, that's it's a real process of learning, and it's a very active one. But you know, I what I do like about what I do like about the promises is that, you know, some days I'm like doing pretty all right here, you know, and and I don't think that's pride. I think that's contentment. You know, like which I could say that I was experiencing zero of 2 months and 3 weeks ago. You know, like or 2 years and 3 weeks ago. You know, like it wasn't there. I like if I look at my life at that point, I was waiting for something to get better all the time, and now
No,
I'm
that's
happy here.
awesome. That's awesome, Milan. That's why one of the reasons I really love doing this podcast with you because we're real, right? We
Yeah.
get up here and tell the truth. I mean, I because I don't know, and maybe it was just me, but I don't think it was just me. I think it's just a newcomer thing. But when I got here, I thought, you know, once I work the steps, once I get some time like these guys, everything is going to be great. I'm not going to have any problems, and life is going to be wonderful. And that's just not true. And so I really am glad we have a forum here for the new guy, especially, or even people that have time that have fallen into some self pity or whatever, to say, hey, it's going to happen to everybody. We all go through problems. I was coming up on 4 years sober before I relapsed and had to file bankruptcy, right? And in this 16 years, I've gone through cancer with my wife. I mean, literally, I mean, our car just got broken into. It was a big, giant deal of weeks and weeks and insurance. I mean, things happen. Life happens. Things are not always great. Now, I have a lot of great things too, but I can't get into this mentality of, oh, everything, nothing's going to ever happen to me once I recover and everything's going to be great. No, we still go through tough times in life. We still get in fear of finances. We still have these problems. We just have a way to deal with them. We have spiritual tools and a process which lifts us up and out of that. But it does not mean we don't go through those same problems, right? And so I think that was important for me when I was new to see these guys that I respected, that had time, that were in recovery, struggle and talk about, hey, I'm having problems with my wife, I'm having problems with my finances, and to let, oh, you know what, I'm not alone. Oh, you know what, this is my problem is not any different or worse than anybody else's. So I really appreciate your the honesty of this podcast.
Mm,
Before we move on, I have a
mm.
special request for you before I go to get my last question for you.
Sure.
So, you've been talking in the last podcast and this podcast, you've mentioned the two-way prayer a few times. And my
Hmm.
wife is real big on the two-way prayer. Can
Yeah.
you just real briefly tell the people out there that may not have heard what a two-way prayer is, what that is, and how you do it?
So, okay, for me, you know, and I've kind of followed the instructions that you could find on twowayprayer.org. I met a guy named Tony, also from Texas, at the conference up in Canada, and he was talking about two-way prayer. So for me, what I do is I actually start by reading my previous day's page. And the reason I do that is almost in a sense, like it gives me a moment of mini inventory of like, how did I do on this? And also what was I seeking yesterday? I have a bad memory, but I also feel like I kind of live in the moment enough that I'm not dwelling on yesterday a lot, anymore. And so I look at it and I look at what the responses are, and I'm quite often surprised. And then when I reach the end of that, what I do is I date the top of the page. Um, I take a few deep breaths at that point. I'm sitting here at the same chair I'm sitting at now, but I'll generally make sure my computer screen is off. I don't feel like I want that glaring at me. Um, and then I sort of write kind of a sentence of gratitudes. I'll give an example right now. For me, what I'll read today's. Okay, just I think I'm okay with it, and if you're okay with a couple minutes of that, so I'm grateful for the privilege to help and serve others, financial abundance, love, faith, patience, kindness, tolerance, acceptance, freedom, growth, the lessons and the blessings, a deepening surrender, honesty, and learning to love completely. And then at this point, I have like, they have some recommended readings. So I've laminated some pages that I just have here. And the one that I read the most is that First Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongue of men or of angels, but do not have love, concerning love. Because what I've come to discover through this process is that if you can love completely, you actually have every other spiritual principle in line. Like it's absolutely the all-encompassing principle, you know. You can be honest and not be loving, but you can't be loving and not be honest. There's a difference there. So I really tried to look at the words while I'm reading that. Then what I'll do is I'll take a few more deep breaths. And one of the things it says is that, like that your higher power is not coming through tension or stress. So when I'm taking these breaths, I'll generally like flex and I'll release after at the end of them, just to get myself to that almost like, they say sometimes if you want to visualize surrender, you pretend to hold a rope and then you let it go, and that's kind of like a surrender. And so I do that. And so now today I asked the universe, I said, how can I be free today? And uh and so for whatever reason, I always have in the response section, it says my son. I feel, I guess, maybe like a child of the universe. Whether it's a lady or a man, I don't have a sexual definition on mine. But I think that I'm a child of the universe. So my response was, and this is all, now I'm writing this a stream of consciousness. And I think when I started out, it was coming from a pretty selfish, self-centered perspective, but you're supposed to look at the responses and pay attention to the ones that can stand up to honest, pure, unselfish, and loving. And those are called the four absolutes. And they're referred to in principle in AA, but it said that Bill Wilson didn't want to sound like he was copying the Oxford group, so he did not include them. But I totally, honestly, like, if you can hold what you're doing up against honest, pure, unselfish, and loving, you're doing some right stuff in the world. Let's just say that, in my humble opinion. So, okay, so my response to my question, how can I be free today? It says, let go of the rope, let go of myself, let go of preference, love wholly and completely, speak with kindness, speak truth, speak with love, listen rather than be heard, seek to understand rather than be understood, honor and respect the moment, Embrace the constant state of change. Take time for others. Take time for passions. Take love to the best or to the next level. Tell people about love and their amazingness. And that's what I had for today. And so basically, for me, what I find about that two-way prayer is like we often enter this program unsure how to act in situations in a different way, right? And so right now, if I'm finding myself not letting go in a situation, if I can remember any of that list, there's a good chance I have a couple things to do to help me out in that moment. And so it's kind of like creating a real life design through the help of your higher power, channeling that of how to grow, really, for me. And I hope that
That's
wasn't
great.
too long.
No, it was great, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. I mean, I need people that have been around a little bit to show me what to do. Right? It's still today.
Yeah.
I need my sponsor to show me
Mm,
what to do, and so that I hope that helps somebody out there. I know
mm,
my wife is big into that, and so really, what I want. That especially the new person to hear, what I try to remind myself of is this is a religious idea and a practical program of action.
mm,
What am I doing? Am I doing the
mm,
two-way prayer? Am I calling my sponsor? Am I going to meeting? It's action, not a theory. I can.
mm.
It says I
Yeah.
have to live it, right? The spiritual
Yeah.
life's not a theory. It's not in my head. It's not a philosophical thing. It's what am I doing? And so the fact that you get up every morning and do that two-way prayer, right?
Mm,
That my wife, who has 19 years uninterrupted, one desire chip, still does the two-way prayer in her meditation in the morning, right? These are the people that make it are the people that come up with these healthy habits
mm.
and put those into practice on a daily basis. So I appreciate you saying that.
And
And go ahead.
so I just want to say one thing before we move on is that I've been doing that now for 3 months and 2 weeks, or 3 months and 3 weeks. It has been my most content, joyful 3 months and 3 weeks of my entire time in the program.
Right.
Coincidence, even if it is, why would I complain? Like there's
Right.
something about it that's really helping me
Right.
adjust to life on life's terms better.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you talked about love and love being all encompassing and the root of everything positive, right? I mean, the bigger big book that I read, Milan, goes as far as to say if I say I love God and I don't love people, I'm a liar. There's no God in me, right? That's
Yeah.
that's a pretty right now. Whether you believe in that or not, that's your own personal choice. But I do believe that God is love. I think if I'm not
Mhm.
loving people, I'm not in God's will. And so for really, especially if you're new and you're like, I don't know what God's will, I don't know what God's will is, right? Sometimes, even if we've been around a while, we struggle with, okay, what is God's will? At the root of it, it's just love somebody, right? Try to
Mhm.
help somebody, try to be selfless, try to get out of the selfish self-centeredness like we're talking about today. What can I do to love another person? And I think that encompasses God's will for me.
I agree wholeheartedly. And when we're talking about saying you love God but don't love someone, then you don't love God. It's exactly what I was talking about step 6. Like you can't kinda entirely be ready for something. Like and so when you understand like what you were just referring to is like you can't have hatred and say you're loving. Like it's like you haven't taken that defect of hatred and applied it entirely, right? Like and so it really is about practicing the principles in all our affairs. Like they have that word entirely and all our affairs. Like they're not like kind of some of them affairs, you know. And I think it's a really important thing is stop kidding ourselves. Stop
Yeah.
kidding ourselves when we're doing half measures.
Yeah.
Like because
Yeah.
pretending you're doing something holy and it being a half measure, it's also practicing dishonesty.
Yeah. Well,
even
and
if
I think
it's
we
to you.
forget sometimes, Milan, that Bill uses absolutes all the time, right? It's like clear-cut directions, not in some directions they could work, they may
Hmm.
not. Pick ones you want. No, clear-cut directions. And so he uses these absolutes, just like you were talking about. And the most absolute one for me is in the step three, because we always, it's so funny. We always hear everybody talk about the third step prayer, the third step prayer. Let me quote the third step prayer for you. And so what I always ask them, Milan, is that's awesome. But you know what the next line is after the third step prayer? That's the most important line of the whole thing. That line says, "We thought well before taking the step that we could utterly abandon ourselves to him." That's an absolute. Can I, not sorta, a little
Hmm.
bit, can I utterly abandon myself for him? He tells us in the second step, before we even get to the third step, right? I have to fearlessly face this proposition that God is everything or he's nothing, right?
Hmm.
I have to, and so when we get to the third step, right, that I can utterly abandon myself. And can I just totally surrender? Okay, I'm going to do it God's way and not my way. Now, again, the spiritual progress, not perfection. None of us do it perfect, but that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to sell out to doing it God's way and not my way. And
Hmm.
sometimes I have to force that because some people in this program are not lovable. They're not nice, and I have
Hmm.
to force myself. Okay, God. Normally I wouldn't like this person, but I know you love them, so help me to try to love them. And I have to work on them. And there's a couple of people, I'm gonna be honest with you, Milan, that make it hard to love them. But I have to work at that because it's what God wants. And I've utterly
Hmm.
abandoned myself to him. And so it's what I try to always teach to my sponsees, what I try to remember. I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this for God.
Hmm.
I'm doing this because I abandoned myself to God and I'm trying to love this person because it's what God wants me to do. I'm trying to help this person because it's what God wants me to do. And then that takes out all my, well, does this person deserve it? Well, they don't treat me that way. No, it takes all that out of the way. It's just, this is what God wants me to do. Right.
Shoulda and deserve are two of the most dangerous words for us.
Especially for us, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to move into the last question that I
Okay.
got for you. It says, how do I get rid of the selfishness and self-centeredness?
Ooh. Well, I think literally through conscious contact with our higher power, through living presently, you know, because like if I'm acting selfishly or self-centeredly, and then we go back to that fear of not getting what I want or fear of losing something I have. Either one of those two thoughts, I'm not living presently. You know, so it's getting closer to our higher power, and it's also being of service. For me, those two things, because ultimately, right? If I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to get that thing I want. I'm living in the future, right? Or like, oh, I'm afraid of losing this thing I have. I'm probably thinking about the past of that thing satisfying some part of me or that thing being mine. You know, like almost at that one, you're almost thinking of the past and the present at the same time. You know, like you're having a memory of something and how you like that, but you're also future catastrophizing what life would be like without it. And and I was taught that the only contact we have with our higher powers right now. Yesterday's contact is not now. Tomorrow's is not. And so a big part of my goal is to be here presently. And that kind of kicks right back to our podcast on gratitude. Like if I am expressing gratitude for this is the one thing that I find a little bit thing about gratitude lists. I partake in gratitude lists, but I try not to talk about yesterday's thing or the upcoming thing because then I feel like it's defeating the purpose of the gratitude list. But anyway, yeah, so I think that's my answer to that.
That's a great answer, Milan. That's a great answer. You know, this could be one of the most important podcasts that we do in our relationship because this is not, again, Milan, this is not just another character defect, right? I mean, there's some character defects that if you don't get rid of them tomorrow, it's not going to necessarily kill you. It may not make you happy, your life as happy as it could be, or you might not reach your full potential, but it's not going to kill you if you don't immediately get rid of this character defect over here. But that's not what me and you are talking about today. We're
Mhm.
talking about the root of our problem. And he says this, I really want you to hear this, especially if you're new out there. We must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. It's not just a regular defect that I need to work on. It's just going to kill me, Milan. If I don't
Yeah.
get rid of this selfishness, self-centeredness, it is going to kill me. First, it's going to kill all the relationships and things around me. And then before long, I'm going to say, I might as well go back and drink. It's going to kill me. And so the book says we must get rid of it. We don't have it's not an optional, not we can work on it down the line. We have to get rid of this selfishness, right? And so, and then you ask, then the question is, well, how? Just like the question I just asked, how do I get rid of it? And so he says the very first thing, and I really want you, if you don't hear nothing else in this podcast today, hear this. We had to have God's help. I can't do it on my own, Milan. It's ingrained in me. It's a lifetime geared. It's my natural talent. I can't do it by myself. I have to have God's help. Like a lot of help from God, a lot of help from my sponsor and my support group and the meetings and the literature, but I have to have God's help. And so, with me and God working together and cooperating together, then God can soften my heart. He can change me and help me to get rid of this selfishness and self-centeredness, right? And so that's A, I have to have God's help. And B is practice, practice, practice. This is a program of practice. It's a practice. That's why Bill says practice, practice, practice these principles. Because this stuff is not natural to me. Right? It's just like you said with the two-way prayer. That's not natural to you. You've been practicing it for 3.5 months. Practice it, practice, practice. And so I have to it doesn't matter if I feel it, right? That's the greatest thing that I learned. Again, the willingness and want to have nothing to do with each other, whether I feel it or not. If I don't feel like being kind to this guy, is irrelevant. Just go be kind to the guy, right? I got to practice.
Mm.
If I feel selfish today and don't want to put my wife ahead of me, it does not matter. Let me just do it and go practice trying to put her ahead of me. It's
Mhm.
all about practice. So if you're struggling with selfish self-centeredness, if you're struggling with putting others before you, practice, practice, practice. I had one of my sponsees told me one time that he was a sponsee that I picked up. He had some time and I reworked the steps with him. But he said his first sponsor, he had this resentment against a coworker, like a bad resentment that he couldn't get rid of. I mean, he tried everything. He prayed, did all this stuff. And the sponsor said, I want you for 30 days to go buy her a gift. Doesn't have to be expensive or big. It could be like a flower, lunch, or coffee. And he said after like a couple of weeks of doing that, he really developed a love for this person that he really couldn't stand, right? It's that
Mm.
practice. I got to practice. I got to practice because none of this stuff is natural to me. So if you're struggling with any of this thing, any of this today or the gratitude podcast or
Mm.
the self-sabotage or the selfish self-centeredness, it's practice. It's about practice, trying to do better,
Mhm.
and then over time, it's just like a guitar player, right? They don't start playing Stairway to Heaven. Then when they first pick up the guitar, they're playing just chords and
Mhm.
they practice and they practice and they practice and they get really good. Well, that's the same as recovery. I have to really practice and practice and practice at these principles if I'm expecting to get good at them.
And you know, I love that you just brought that into it, especially here at the end. I would like to say, I would like to add on to this is that practice your gratitudes. Like, gratitude is a muscle you can flex, and it's guaranteed going to help you get out of self. You know, you know, maybe you can't buy someone a present like Darren's saying, but a smile is free. You know, you can start just with a smile, or asking someone how's their day. You know, like whether you care or not, just start externalizing in life, because it's when we're trapped in ourself that it's the most damaging in what I've witnessed, you know, since I've been in the program. I like, you know, I can tell, I can literally tell when a sponsee's going sideways. Like I can tell when they're like, when it's all about, everything's about them in that conversation. And like it's, I can just feel. And I could feel it with myself too. When I'm going sideways in old behavior, like, and I'm like, well, maybe I need to just go close my eyes for a minute or do something. Like, I call it turning the page. And sometimes I just have to close my eyes for like 5 minutes and just make this day a slightly different day, you know?
Yeah. I love that you said that, Milan, that you brought that, because yes, it doesn't have to be a physical thing like a president or something. It can
Mm.
be,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be. It's like sometimes, like, what do you need from me? Sometimes the person just needs somebody to listen.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's how can I help other people? Help is relative, right? And
Mm.
so, but the problem is we don't ever ask, hey, Milan, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Do you need me
We
to
are
pray for
not
you?
even taught to do that, man.
Exactly. And so if I can start practicing, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Right. And just being intuitive. Sometimes you don't even have to ask. You can just see, hey, this person needs
Yeah.
financial help. Hey, this person needs a ride to the meeting, like you were talking about before.
Mm.
Hey, this person needs somebody to talk to. Right. It's just being in tune to how can I help be of maximum service to others.
Mm. I love that. Well, I think that's a great place for us to leave it. I feel like today was epic. My love for you is epic. I love and
Love
appreciate
you,
you,
brother.
Darrin, and doing this together. I'm really glad we're doing a regular thing here, and my heart is just feeling open and awesome. This was a fabulous meeting. Do you want to say anything before we shut her
Yeah,
down?
just the same, ditto. The same for me, man. I love you. I love this podcast. I learn something, on it every time that helps me in my recovery. And I think that's the ultimate goal for all of us is what can I learn to help me do better in my recovery in my life. So again, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at the most gracious place for you asking me to do this on a regular basis with you, and I love you. And I think it's a really positive thing for the recovery community.
I think so too. And everybody out there, thank you for tuning in and tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.